Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. Oh man, so where do we even start this podcast episode? Because this podcast with you has been one that I've been looking forward to since I don't even know when you first started popping off on Twitter, but I remember when I would just hear the "What up, dude?" Can you say "dude" real quick?
Freaking what up, dude?
Yeah, when I would just hear that, I love that so much, and I was just like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't really know anything about him, but I just love the way he says dude. And then I just enjoyed the entertainment of you being in Twitter spaces and things like that. It felt like there was anytime I was doing anything, if I needed to check into a Twitter space, I would see you on there, and I enjoyed it. And so, but for people who don't know who you are, can you give a brief intro to yourself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you mean? Do you want to know like the backstory of who I am in real life?
Give me the 30
NFTs?
Give me the 30-second who you. If someone's watching this and they're like, I have no idea who King Fudd is, give me the 30-second spiel.
I'm just a random guy on Twitter that likes making jokes and likes buying pictures and ruffling feathers and having fun on Twitter. That is it.
You have ruffled a few feathers.
I ruffle the feathers. I ruffle the feathers.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But okay, so give me, what was your background before getting into NFTs?
I owned pest control companies. Still do. It's nothing massive or huge. Like they're just small companies. And did real estate. That's it.
There we go.
Nothing big.
And then how did you end up getting into like crypto and NFTs and everything like that?
Yeah. So, man, I was late. I have a friend I met through fantasy sports.
Okay.
His name's Matthew Beck. He's the president of Solana Ventures.
Okay.
Massive into crypto, and he had been telling me about it since like 2016. And I just ignored him and faded him because I'm an idiot. And I finally ended up selling one of my companies, and because of that, I had a good amount of liquid where I was like, if I'm going to invest it anywhere, I think crypto is the move. And it was right during the bull market. It was right as Doge was going from like, it was just exploding. I think at the time it was like 0.002, and it got all the way up to like 10 or 11 cents. And I had only put in, I don't know, like $200, and I was able to take out, I can't remember, I think like 1,800. I don't know. It was something where whatever the numbers were, I made like $1,600 off of 200, and I was like, what? Why didn't I put in more? And then I just started getting into it. I started talking to a lot of friends that are friends with Matthew Beck. And they were telling me about NFTs. And I was like, dude, give me some of that. That's it. I mean, it was just like a normal growth process of, my connections teaching me about it, them having success stories. And then I just followed suit. And then me being loud and annoying is just kind of what created King Fudd from there. And
there we go.
That was it, man.
So when was that? Do you remember like what year and month that was? Was that 2021 or were you early 2022?
Yeah, it was 2021. And my first NFT, I think was it wasn't a Catalina whale, but that was my first NFT project. Like I went heavy on, and I remember it being around Christmas.
Yeah.
Of 2021, right?
Yep.
So that was when like I had already been into NFTs a little bit, but that's when I was like really getting into them. And I had already had a massive bag of Solana that I was buying around, $180 a pop plus. And I think at that time Solana was already down to like 120. I was like, well, I'll try and make some money back. And then I just started getting deeper and deeper that way.
There we go.
I mean, it's not an exciting story. It was just pretty natural and kind of just the consequences of, the actions of buying crypto and losing money and buying crypto and gaining money and then finding out about NFTs and way to exponentially make more money through art.
I'm always curious. I ask everybody that question because I'm always curious, like, what got your foot in the door to begin with, right? Because I feel like everybody's got a different answer of kind of what got them interested in crypto, or did they get into NFTs first? And I always kind of think I have an idea in my mind of like how most people get involved with it, and then I feel like it's always wrong what I assume. But so with that, like when you first started on Twitter, and so you were getting into NFTs, you're on Twitter. Did you go by King Fudd literally right from the beginning, or how did that come to be?
No, dude. Actually, I didn't even do Twitter really. My OG Twitter account was Spit and Fire. Which is so stupid. So was King Fudd. Everything's stupid about it. But I used to tweet. I mean, I think you can go back and find them back in like 2012, 2013, 14. I would tweet stuff and it would get like maybe 1 like. And I had like maybe 8 followers and 9 of them were bots. Didn't really have Twitter for anything other than reading. I more was on Discord.
Really?
Yeah.
For like gaming or something?
No. I got into Discord through NFTs.
Okay.
And I'm like a boomer, dude. I didn't know what I was doing. So I had someone like walk me through Discord, how to join channels and things like that. And I got into the Catalina whale chat. And this is how I became King Fudd. I'll tell it quickly. But at the beginning of my Discord, I think my Discord name was Poop Stain or like Poop Stick. It was something super childish per usual with me. And I went in the Discord and Catalina whales weren't moving the floor price. It was just sitting stagnant. And I was watching all these other NFTs. I remember on Magic Eden tracking all the Solana projects, a bunch of them going up like 10x, 15x. And I'm invested thousands and thousands of dollars into Catalina whales, and they're just sitting stagnant. I remember at like 8 to 11 SOL. They would fluctuate. And so I'd go in there and I would just say, what is the team doing? They're not producing anything. Why haven't they even made announcements? What are they even trying to build? And I would get shredded in there. Everyone was giving me just clown emojis on every comment I would make, and I thrive in the hate, man. And so my friends were laughing at it because they knew like there was some sarcasm involved. They knew me personally. So like they're egging me on, like continue to do this, man. Like you're firing people up. And it was more for fun. But I was like, I'm out of this project. I'm leaving. Like you guys aren't doing anything. And then I just changed my Discord from like Poop Stain or something to Athletic God. And yeah, that's a joke because like I'm a little bit chubby now. I used to be all skinny and coordinated. And I went back in as Athletic God like 2 weeks later and just started fighting the whales again. And they're like, dude, this guy's just like Poop Stain. This guy sucks, man. And so I was just bothering, ruffling feathers, just eating it up, having fun. Some of it was true. Like they weren't doing enough. So I left again and I ended up changing myself to something else on Discord. But at this time, Catalina whales started making more announcements. I started buying more whales, like some for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 grand. I had about 20. I was racking them up. Had a lot of money in the Catalina whales. And so they started doing Twitter Spaces. So I re-downloaded Twitter and I would hop on Twitter Spaces, and the founders who I genuinely love as people started, saying their plans on Twitter Spaces. And then at the end, they'd say, does anyone have any questions? And you could go up. and nobody knew who I was. I had never talked. They had only seen me in Discord being annoying. And I got called up, and at this time I was spitting fire with like a whale profile picture. And I called myself King Fudd. Because as soon as I got up there, I remember Carlo was like, "Oh, it's the Fudd guy." And I was like, "Freaking what up, dudes?" And he's like, "Who is this?" And I was like, "Dude, it's King Fudd to you, dude. Don't call me the Fudd guy. Call me King Fudd. I'm here to Fudd you to zero, dude." And I was fired up, and it just went from Spaces to Discord. Went back in Discord, and everyone was like, "Bro, that Poop Stain or Athletic God, whoever that is, he was fun to talk to." Like, it made me feel good. I was like, they were guys that I had connected with, so I actually appreciated them. And they were really complimentary of my genuine constructive criticism, because I'm not always a dick. I'm actually nice in real life, for the most part. But that's how kind of King Fudd was birthed. It just was me pushing the whales to try and be better than what they were, in my mind, and help my investment. And I thought the idea of constructive criticism being called FUD was stupid. It's like, no, it's my money I've put into this. And so I'm going to give you criticism that I think you can do better, because you have my money as well. Like, I'm paying royalties, you're making money off me. So let's grow together. Let me give you what I believe good advice, but it's your project. You do what you want. And so when people would call it FUD, it would actually make me mad. I'm like, no, I'm trying to help all of us here. And so that's where King Fudd got birthed. And then just from there, I kind of took that role on, and the name definitely fits me.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. No, I've always wondered what that story was. And I always hate asking people like those sort of questions in private, because I'm like, damn, I want to hear that on the podcast. So no, that's awesome. I didn't know any of that. But I always kind of wonder how somebody like starts to develop the persona that they have. And so I've always wondered kind of where King Fudd came from. So that clears it up for me. But yeah, no, and I agree with you. I do think that, like, I think when it comes to NFTs, we don't have any history of it, right? So we don't know, especially when projects were minting in 2021, nobody knew what they were doing, right? Like, nobody had a clue. And so it was like, you got kudos for just not rugging, right? Like, not just hard rugging and deleting your Discord and everything like that, right? And then we got into 2022, and we had a big run up on a lot of NFT projects. And then obviously with Celsius and everything like that over the last summer, things kind of cooled down a little bit. And I think all of a sudden, like, we learned a lot in the last year or so about NFTs. And I feel like there's this weird line of like, what is FUD? What is constructive criticism? What is like just shit talking, right? And I think a good, healthy dose of like all of the above is probably a good thing, right? Like, because I think on one hand, shit talking can kind of be like, you know, can keep the timeline spicy, and we all do want to be entertained at times, right? I do think constructive criticism is always a good thing. I always think people should be constructive and offer criticism that we can build off of and grow from and everything like that. And then when I think about FUD, I think about like, you know, just somebody kind of saying like, hey, I think this project's going to go to zero. And to me, I'm like, you know, sometimes saying that just motivates that project to not go to zero, right? So I'm like, that can be healthy, right? And I think all of them can be healthy in some way. And then I think there are obviously times it can go too far, and people say things that might be considered personal or whatever, that I'm like, hey, I'm not a fan of those sort of things. Let's keep it to the NFT projects. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to you, I guess, so when you first, obviously your first like FUD essentially was about Catalina whales, which was a project that you had big bags in. What was like the first project that you started talking about that you didn't have big bags in, and kind of how did that come about?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know my first one. I can specifically remember D-Gods though. And it was because I'm sure there were other ones before that didn't do well on the timeline. But the ones I enjoyed the most were getting under D-God profile picture skin and talking about the big three basketball team and how that was the corniest, worst league, worst acquisition you could ever do. Why would an NFT project buy into a fake league? Like, just all these fake mean things just to get people riled up. But let me take some accountability here first, because you're saying you're actually drawing a lot of lines where, like, you know, constructive criticism, just talk smack, all sorts of stuff. I know I've crossed lines. I'm very well aware of that. I'm not an idiot when it comes to Twitter. For the most part, I never, ever mean genuine harm, and I never, ever genuinely want people to lose money. I'm actually the opposite. I'm very passionate about people not losing money, and I'm very passionate about helping people make money. So when I do FUD, if it's genuine, like, and I'm not just joking, most people don't know I'm very sarcastic, and I usually mean things like as like an extreme opposite to make people laugh.
Yeah.
But when it, like, especially like with DGods, usually they're doing so well and have done so well. Like, any genuine FUD can be talked about, but they're doing so well that it doesn't affect the project, right? But at the same time, because people, you know, have a lot of money invested, if they've bought the top or if they're buying on the way up, they're going to feel more emotional about it. So if I mock the big three basketball team, they're going to get, you know, like, hey, that's my team. Like, no, it's virtually your team. Like, all those little jokes, it's just having fun.
Yeah.
And now, with that being said, I try and reach out to people individually and be like, hey, if you're bothered, call me out. Like, I'm happy to talk it out. So with you drawing those lines, I've crossed some, and I always try and fix it. Most of the time I don't get to fix it because people will block me first. And I think that's just my outlook on Twitter is different than other people's. So I would say it went from Catalina Whales to other little projects that kind of rugged to DGods because they were doing well. I like fudding things that are doing well, or things that are doing absolutely horrible, not really things in between.
Yeah.
Because the extremes are what people like to talk about.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a method to the madness for me. So
yeah, and I think, you know, I've always looked at it as, I'm like, King Fudd, to me, I've always felt like, from the personal conversations I've had with, actually, I'll talk about even before I had a personal conversation with you. When I was just in Spaces, I was like, to me, he seems like he's just a very sarcastic dude who's making these, you know, what I seemed as lighthearted jokes about these different projects and things like that. And then I felt like there were times when I was like, okay, I can tell maybe he's a little bit more serious with this one, but for the most part, I was like, these are all like lighthearted jokes, and that's why I never took them like ultra serious. And I also thought it was like you were the first person that I could really remember that was bringing like entertainment to NFTs, where for the most part, like, Twitter Spaces were kind of just just random as hell before that, and all of a sudden I felt like, hey, there's like the actual entertainment value. Like, I feel like I'm watching I love listening to like Theo Von, right? Like, I think he's absolutely hilarious.
He's awesome.
And like, he definitely has like a shtick, right? And I was like, or maybe he is just like that all the time, but I was like, he might be. But I was like, man, I feel like King Fudd has this like, you know, comedic persona. He has this like kind of this shtick that he does, and I think it's hilarious. And like, I laughed at it a bunch. And even when I would see you make comments about DGods, I was like, well, yeah, it like makes sense. It's like, you're gonna get great engagement by, you know, you go for the king, like you're gonna get the engagement that's gonna go along with that, because you're gonna have a bunch of people who are like, oh fuck, you don't talk about my bags, right? And I always just enjoyed it because I was like, you know, I don't think, you know, if you're a smart person or if you're a level-headed person, I think you could understand, like, yeah, he's joking around about a lot of this, right? I do think sometimes, and I don't think this is just crypto Twitter, but I think in general, when it comes to like text conversations, I feel like a lot of context gets lost, right? And I've always felt like, I always say to people, anytime somebody's going to hit me up with a serious topic, I'm like, don't hit me with a text. We're going to lose context. Yes. Like, I need to hear your vocal tones. I need to hear your enunciations on certain things. We need to get on a phone call, or we got to meet up in person, right?
I love that. Yeah.
And that's always the way that I've done things, because I feel like when you put people behind text, they're a lot tougher than they typically are, right? Because I think you can think about what you're saying more. You can sometimes put a little bit of more of a dagger in that you wouldn't say if you were on an actual phone call or in person with them or something along those lines. And then when those conversations, even if it is on like a Twitter space or whatever, when those then get like reiterated through tweets later, it gets taken out of context. And now all of a sudden someone's like, oh yeah, and you hear King Fudd said this? And now you don't have the vocal tones. You don't have the things that show you that you were joking around. And all of a sudden people can get even more butthurt about something, right? And that's why I always say when it comes to like the space, I'm like, man, I feel like I get along with 99.99% of people that I meet. And I'm like, even people that I've seen like FUD things that I like where they're actually like angry with certain projects or whatever. I'm like, dude, I've met them and I've gotten along great with them. And so it's always something that I always think there's more than meets the eye, right? And so with you, I've always like, even, you know, when we eventually met in person in Vegas, I was like, I just enjoy this guy as a person. And when we talked about, you had at one point talked about like social strategy and you talked about kind of your thought process on how you created certain tweets. And I was like, man, it's so much deeper than people think. Like he really is incredibly smart and like knows the space really well. And I was like, and I don't feel like he gets proper credit for like how much he actually knows, because there are so many people who are just grifters and they come into space and they don't really know shit and they launch something without doing any sort of background research or anything like that. You know the space and there's no doubt about it. And I think that there comes this line of like, I think when people think about King Fudd, there's some people who love you. There's some people who don't like you, but I think that like those are misguided opinions. And then I think there's a lot of people who are confused where they're just like, I don't know. Are you serious? Is it a shtick? What's your like, you know, thought process with all of this? So I want to kind of ask you.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about all that.
Let's delve into that because that's an aspect where I'll take a lot of ownership. And I wish there are things I wish I could take back on Twitter, where it's like, okay, I was crossing the line. You know, that's a little too personal. So I think most people know me from doing spaces with Shillin, right? I think that's fair. I would say I don't want to discredit myself by saying that, but I like to give credit to other people because King Fudd isn't just like self-built. It's because of people on Twitter. They've either enjoyed me or hated me. Either way, they've gotten my name out on the timeline. And because of that, it's an account that's slowly grown. And I'm very well aware it's a very niche market. It's crypto Twitter. It's small. It's not like this super massive platform. Like I'm self-aware that this isn't some special account. It's just a fun account to me, where I have an opportunity to build off of it and to help people and to hopefully better the space and grow the space. And we'll delve into that more. But for the people who don't like me, I get it. I really do. I can guarantee if you were to say, well, this person, they don't like you, and then they were to tell me why, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't like me either. I've always jokingly said, but kind of serious, if there was two of me, there was two King Fudds, I wouldn't like him. He would drive me nuts, dude. He's annoying. But it is a personality. It's a Twitter personality. Now, is it really me? Yes. I would say most things I say are 100% what I think, but I go to the extremes of what I think to get reactions. So it is methodical. And like I said, I get why people don't like me. It's not fun to not be liked. Like, I want to be liked by everyone. Like Michael Scott on The Office, like he's like, I need to be liked. I'm not like that, but I like to be liked. It's fun to have compliments. It feels good. But I genuinely just want Twitter to be a fun space. I do. Like, it might be hard for people to understand, like, well, we're running businesses here. Okay, you can still make it fun. I've run businesses in real life, and I do everything I can to make it fun for the people who work with me and motivating and exciting to where when they show up, and that's core beliefs of how I believe life should be. I believe that life should be happy and fun. Life is hard, dude. Every single person that we're bumping into on Twitter, I'm well aware that they have crap going on in their real life that sucks. I do. Dude, I have 4 kids, Companies, it might sound like we can talk about only the positives. That's the thing about Twitter. You can put up any facade you want. That's, to me, problems with the lack of transparency. There's just too many facades. There's too many fake people on Twitter. Whereas I feel like I can go on Twitter and it's like a relief from real life. It's like a different world where I can hop on there and get in touch with people and make jokes and be stress-free and just kind of poke fun and just have fun. And so ultimately for the people that don't like me, I would just want them to know, like, listen, my goals are the same as yours, more than likely. And I genuinely want you to be happy. And if I ever belittle you, it's usually just poking fun at you. I feel like I try and put myself out there to be belittled all the time. I'm okay with self-depreciation because there's no way I'm going to improve. And I love debating. I love the challenge. So yeah, I don't know how to be more transparent. That's who I am. Like, so if people don't like it, they don't like me. And I get it, like I said, and maybe I don't get it. Maybe there's more about me that I don't understand. You could teach me right now. I'm being serious, and then I can improve. And then hopefully, make better connections in the future or self-improve. But I'm more just, this is a long monologue, trying to explain who I am. It's hard to dive deep into me and like openly divulge it. But in a few short words, I'm just a normal guy.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the impression I've always gotten from you. And I think that the hard part about this space is that like we're all constantly learning and developing and things like that. And when you find something that works for you in the space, your gut instinct goes, well, just double down on what I'm doing, right? It's working. Why would I stop doing what I'm doing? Double down on it, right? Maybe push it to a further extreme, right? If I tweeted this and it got this sort of engagement and it was technically Fudd, okay, well, let me like double down on that again because I'm going to get even more engagement and that I'm going to get more followers from that and yada, yada, yada. And then I think at some point you go, okay, now let me think about like, what do I want people to think of when they think of me moving forward, right? And I always say like, I think people, we sometimes, not just in Web3, but in life in general, sometimes we almost don't want people to develop. And I'm like, I think that what you were once known for doesn't mean that has to be what you're known for moving forward, right? And I remember when you derugged Mischievous Maxis, which we'll talk about shortly here, but when you did that, I was like, he didn't have to do that. Like, if he wanted to just stick with his Twitter persona and just focus on that and be this kind of comedic relief on Twitter, he could just do that, right? But the fact that you were like, I'm going to actually derug this project and I'm going to be there for this community and I'm going to do what I can to build this community up and all of that, I was like, I have a shit ton of respect for that because it would be so easy for you to not do that, right? And I think, once again, it goes to where when people don't know who somebody is, or if they haven't had that in-person interaction with you, or if they haven't had, like, I feel like sometimes there's like two different versions of you on Twitter Space. I'm curious to hear your thoughts if you agree on this. When you're in those like big Twitter Spaces, there's 1,200 people in them and everything like that. You're in your like comedic mode, right? And you're churning and like, and I can see your brain moving and it's like comedic art that I'm watching, right? And then when I'm in the Twitter Spaces where it's super late night, usually it's like, maybe 10 p.m. Hawaii time, and it's midnight in LA. Maybe it's even a little bit later. And I hear you in kind of a different tone. It's more personal at that point in terms of like you're more relaxed. It's not as like you're having more just like one-on-one conversations with people and stuff like that. And that's when I knew I was like, I love this guy, because I could tell how much you genuinely wanted to chat with different people and get to know them and things like that. And like I felt like the shtick was off in the smaller spaces, and then in the bigger ones, like you're kind of playing out your role just like almost like an actor does, right? And so almost similar to like a I don't know if you are a Barstool fan, but like Big Cat from Barstool. I feel like he has these like little random shticks that he does where he, hates on LeBron James and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I don't think those are actually legit. I think he knows LeBron's incredible. Like, but he has these shticks and he goes with them. And then, and then you find these random moments where the shtick's kind of off and he's just having a genuine, normal conversation. And it's what I've always loved and appreciated. Do you feel like you, I guess, are like you find
times where you kind of want to turn off the comedy and just be kind of just normal King Fudd, or is it something that you have to? Is it tough to kind of switch between like being in the comedy role and then also just having like the genuine normal conversations that you have?
Is it hard being two-faced? Is that what you're asking?
Not having two different. I don't even know how to phrase it.
Yeah. No. So okay. So let me explain. It actually has to do with my energy, man. So I'm tired a lot of times, and when I'm tired, a lot of my walls are down. Like where I'm like, and plus it has to do with the energy of the space. If, okay, and you got like, let's be honest, man. I've got to make it clear that I know when I'm engagement farming, but I do it different than other people. And so I think it's hard for people to tell if I'm just engagement farming or if I'm serious. I try and make it obvious. Like when I joke about it's my birthday all the time, or,
oh yeah, happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. I actually didn't even tell you. So I'm embarrassed, I
had it in my calendar, of course.
Or, just dumb things like, oh, I'm leaving Twitter. I feel like that's obvious. And not if it's your first time seeing it, right? But then when it's your second time, then you're like, what? And then when it's your third time, you're like, okay, I get it. He's just being an idiot. And that's what's fun for me. It's like, I'm just having fun. Now, when it comes to like you say, like big spaces, it's not fake me. That's who I really am. Now, I'm also well aware there's 1,200 people listening, and there's nothing worse than sitting and listening to someone speak. That's just a snooze. And that's where I got on Twitter Spaces, and I knew I could get attention, and I could also have a lot of fun, and more importantly, I could help other people have fun. And so I saw that. It's 2 p.m. It's kind of when people get tired. They have their siestas. And I hop on there and I'm listening. I'm just like, this is boring. Let me go up there and I'm going to try and make people laugh. That's what I've always done my whole life. I'm the type of person who loves comedic relief. I love awkward situations. I think they're funny. And so when those things happen, it makes me laugh. So I just try and go on and do things that make people laugh. I've also been the guy who's gone up and tried to make people laugh and nobody laughs, and it sucks, but you just try again. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I get how people or even you view it as two different people, but the truth is, I'm a normal guy. So when I have energy, I go up there and I try and, provide energy to the space. And when it's late at night and people are a little more tired and chill, I feel like it's a good time to open up. And I loved that about Twitter Spaces back in like 2022, where you could go on Spaces and there was only like 20 people in the room, and you guys could just open up and get to know each other and talk about NFTs in like a really kind of calm, private manner. But then I also love the opposite end of things. I just enjoy both of them. So I wouldn't say, like, I know I joked about me being two-faced, but it's all about reading the room. And I would say that's one of my strengths, is I can read a room a lot better than most people who go up on Twitter Spaces.
Obviously, like that makes total sense. And I think that, like, obviously most people, I think, know you from, once again, like the Twitter Spaces with Shillin and everything like that. What are your thoughts on, I guess, like the grouping people together sort of thought process of things? And what I mean by that is, like, in life in general, I don't agree with anybody on everything, right? Like, there's not my family, not my best friends, not anybody. I feel like that's what makes us unique in life, is that we agree on some things, we don't agree on some things, and that's what keeps conversation interesting. If we all agreed on everything, the conversation would be boring as hell, right? But I do think there's a lot of times that we group things together, right? Where if one person does something and one person's associated with them, all of a sudden you both get associated with that, right? So if people know you and Shillin as like, oh, okay, they started doing these spaces together and everything like that, and then you say something, Shillin gets grouped into that. Shillin says something, you get grouped into that, right? And when you might not agree with each other on those things, right? And so was there ever, and I don't want to talk about a Shillin. Like I told you before we started this podcast, like if Shillin ever wants to come on the podcast, I would have him, and I'd be interested to hear his story. I know there's a lot of people, whether people like him or not, I know other people would want to hear his story. But from your end of things, is it tiring getting grouped in with somebody who you may not agree with on everything? And how do you prevent that moving forward? Like, is that something that you think about now is like developing the further like King Fudd personality and like people, you now have more things going on than when you first got started with Twitter Spaces. You were mainly on there for offering constructive criticism on projects that you held, but now you have other things going on. You have projects that you're involved in. And obviously you want kind of the attention to be on those. And so I guess, do you have a different way of going about things than you did at the beginning when it was just kind of more like slinging from the hip?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was kind of loaded. So, oh man, it made me think about so many things. That's a really good question, because Twitter itself has we've created groups. And it feels very high school to me. Like I genuinely, like, there's no other place I've been where socially there's like popular groups and like the D-gods are the jocks of NFTs. I don't know. Like, I'm not really, that's not me trying to pin that on them. I'm just saying, like, there are groups. And naturally that's because there's groups of NFT projects. There's different communities. But then it's also become social groups. And dude, in high school and all growing up ever, I've always been the type of person that would mingle with every group. Like, I just did not care. Like, if there was the nerds from theater, like, that were dressed up as goths every day, I would go talk to them. Like, I thought it was fun. I like what they're into. If it was, this group of choir nerds, like, that's just who I was. I never had an individual group. It was always me going to other groups and just kind of being a part of them. And that's how Twitter is to me. But I was getting paid to do spaces with Alex. And because of that, I definitely got like connected with him and grouped with him. And it's fun when you're winning, right? It's fun when you're having success. And if I ever did something that brought Alex down, that's not fun for him. If he ever did something that I felt like brought me down, that's not fun for me. But to tell you the truth, that's just how relationships work. And I know a lot of people don't like Alex. I know a lot of people don't like me. But any good friendship or any good, healthy work relationship, there's ups and downs. And your job, if you're working with someone, is to help them when they're down and for them to help you when you're down. So I genuinely don't mind being grouped with him. But I would hope, and what I don't believe a lot of people do this well, is the maturity to understand that they're two different people, with two different motives, or just lives. And I feel like Twitter isn't good at that yet. Crypto Twitter isn't. And so that's something I hope to, separate myself, but I can still be friends with people who don't like Alex, or vice versa. People who do like Alex. Like, obviously, as a human beings, we can all collectively say we don't like murder, right?
Yep. Anti-murder.
Yeah, we're anti-murder, right? But then you can go to the gray area. Okay, but what if they murdered 6 of your family members? Is it okay to murder them back? Some people would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's justice. Some people would be like, no, like, you still got to be humane about it. Put them in jail. There's gray area. And on Twitter, crypto Twitter, I know that's a very extreme example. Like I said, I'd go to the extremes. On crypto Twitter, I think there's a lot of gray area. And Alex, I think, is a good person. And the reason I bring that up, overall, I think his intentions are good. But I know a lot of people don't like him, and then they project that onto me. But I also know that there's a lot of people, I've put them in that scenario too, where a lot of people liked me or were paired with me, and I've done things that other people don't like, and it puts them in an uncomfortable scenario. And so for that, like, I would never intentionally do that. I would want to fix that in DMs or behind scenes. And I say behind scenes because I'm usually joking. And if people can't read it, I'll try and explain it to them. So I don't know if that's even the direction I want to take the answer, but that's just kind of the truth. Like I'll be grouped with anyone. It could be someone that you totally hate, someone that you totally think's a scammer. And I'm still going to have a normal conversation and treat them like a human. And people have pros and cons about them. Crypto Twitter just loves to focus on the cons, without, acknowledging all the benefits and pros of having that person around. So I'll be grouped with anybody, but I would prefer to be grouped with everybody.
Yeah. I'm a big transparency person in the sense of like, I think if we understood most people, we'd understand why they make the decisions that they make. Not saying we'd agree with all the decisions that they make, but if we're all a product of our environment, we're a product of our experiences. And so as a result, you make decisions based off the prior, the knowledge that you've gained from the prior experiences that you've had. Right.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, a lot of times when I'm like, God, why did that person do that? Well, when I get to know them, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand it a bit more now, right? Like I understand you now, so I understand your logic, I understand your thought process, I understand why you made that decision, right? Whether I agree with it or not is a whole nother thing, but like I can at least understand why they did what they did, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's always been something that I try to do is I feel like communication allows you to get to know somebody, then you find out, now I'm hearing your story of how King Fudd kind of came to be. I'm understanding like why you at first when you guys were doing all these spaces together, I was like, I like, why are they doing a space together every day? Like, and then it was like, oh, because they're getting paid. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, we all got bills to pay. So I get that. And so I think like with proper transparency, we understand a lot of why things are done, right? And then I think when it comes to like, once again, the comedy aspect of things, I think the hard part about comedy is that you can't be funny if you're afraid of crossing the line. And when you do cross the line, that means you need to pull back and go, hey, my bad, I fucked up, right? But I do think it also is something where if you're afraid to cross the line, you're probably not that funny then, right? And there's this dude I've seen on Instagram recently. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Matt Rife, I think his name is. Dude's hilarious. Yeah, he's very, very funny. I could be butchering it, the pronunciation of his name, whatever. But he's very, very funny, and he toes the line of like what a white guy can say, okay? And it's really interesting seeing the crowds that he performs in. They're very diverse. And I think it's really cool how he kind of toes that line and at the end of it, everybody's crying, laughing no matter what he said, right? But I think once again, that's where comedy is this weird thing where there's this line and the moment you step over that, you can hurt somebody's feelings, right?
Because there's truth to it.
Right.
That's what
There's
makes
a little
things
truth
funny.
to every joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that like, it's when we make jokes, there's always a tiny, tiny bit of truth. And then when you add that in there and then you take it to the extreme, that's where obviously, it can blow up a little bit, yep. Right? What I'm curious for you is, okay, so as somebody who has a family, you got 4 kids, you've got a wife and everything like that. When you get off these Twitter spaces, is she like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh man, I just had this conversation with someone yesterday because we were talking in person and they called me King Fudd and they know my real name.
Yeah.
Like, bro, don't call me that. Don't call me that. People in real life don't know about King Fudd. It's just like, look, that's my safe space. That's where I go to have fun and like just mess around. And so my wife has heard a lot. She's heard my jokes a million times over. I mean, she's been married to me 10 plus years. And she's to the point where she just rolls her eyes like, dude, you're an idiot. I married a moron. I mean, but at the same time, like, it's who I am. I self-depreciate by calling myself an idiot and moron when it comes to like jokes. But I genuinely don't think that about myself. I think I'm really lucky to be a dad. I think I'm super blessed to have earned the wife that I have. And I say earned because I think she's better than me. But I also feel like I've earned someone of her stature and beauty through the effort and work I'm willing to put in to help provide for her and the lifestyle I provide for her and my children. And so like, it's okay for me to have fun and to make jokes. And Twitter's always been that kind of escape for me. I've worked really hard the last decade of my life. Actually, I would say the last 15 years of my life, I have probably outworked most people. Very little free time, very little selfish time. It's been serving my children. It's been serving my wife. It's been serving the people that I'm building these companies with, and bettering the people around me, and trying to better the people around me while bettering myself. And I haven't had time to indulge into just myself. And to be honest, Twitter has kind of become that, where like I can indulge into NFTs. I can indulge into crypto. I can have fun. It's a hobby for me. And that's how it started out. It's like, I want my hobbies to be fun. And this is an easy one to access on my phone, where I can do that while being a dad. I could do that while, being out working and growing these companies. So yes, my wife definitely thinks, I'm an idiot. She laughs at a lot of my tweets. And at the same time, she's embarrassed of a lot of my tweets because, a lot of the stuff I say is over the line or dumb. So, yeah, I know that's a really long, loaded answer, but it's because there is a reality behind the stupid Twitter tweets that you read. I'm, out there waking up at 5 a.m, helping get my kids ready for school, feeding them, driving them to school, making tons of calls, trying to make it work for my family to live in Hawaii, balance time with them to go have fun, balance being a good husband, and trying to better myself and all my personal weaknesses. So there's a lot to King Fudd than just saying, hey, you're a moron, you should have sold at the top. There's a lot more, obviously, to every single human. I feel like I can do that for other people. And so I hope people do that for me as well. Like I would appreciate that. So yeah, definitely a different world for me on Twitter.
How often do you, when you think about, King Fudd and this persona that is out there and this, and Twitter and everything like that, how often do you think about like, where do I want to take this? Like, is this something where you're constantly...
It's been planned, Marc.
This is all this is programmed.
I know you think it might. I guarantee there's people that are like, no, it hasn't. I promise you, since the moment I had Catalina whales in my wallet and I was telling them what they need to do better, I was texting my close friends who were in NFTs saying, I could do this, but better. We could do this, but better. I know how to run a business better than these people. Now, it sounds cocky. It sounds like I'm being a dick. But I don't care. Because I think winners have that mentality. In order for me to have had successful businesses and in order for me to be able to balance 4 children and a sweet wife, she's had to support me like crazy, and I've had to put in the work like crazy. I know from personal experiences through growing up that I will outwork people and I will outperform people. And so that was my mentality, man. From the very get-go, I had Catalina whales in my wallet, and I knew I could create, dude, I love the Catalina whales. But even at that time, it's like, I can create a better project, a better community. I could provide more than what they're doing. That was my mentality. And so from the beginning, I was texting. Nobody believed in me, dude. I had 100 followers. And I was telling them, I'm going to do a project. I'm going to do a project. I'm going to do it better than them. And that has been calculated for years coming. I've known what I was doing. And I know people might not know you did it. You were just kind of flying by the seat. No, dude, I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't waste my time. I wouldn't waste my money, hours and hours and hours if I didn't have a game plan. And so I knew what I was doing, man. The whole time I've been ready to run a project and to rock a project in a community since the beginning. So that's the stuff that gets me fired up. Like this is the conversation I want to have. This is fun for me. This is what gets my energy going because I love building. I love it. I love providing value. I love seeing people do things, and then I'm so competitive. I'm like, I want to do that better, especially if I'm passionate about it. And so this NFT space is perfect for me. Like, I like what you're doing, but I'm going to do it better.
So, okay, so here would be my question on that then. So, and I completely agree with you. I do think you have to have that attitude. Like, I remember when I first started with photography, I had somebody, a friend of mine, who said to me, "Your photos look like senior photos." And I was like, well, bro, I just fucking started. Like, obviously they suck. I don't know what I'm doing yet. Like, give me a minute and like, I'll be doing cool things, right? A year later, like, I was, working full time as a photographer and like living in Los Angeles and shooting with people I never thought I'd have the ability to meet and things like that, right? And I was like, see, just give me a little bit of time and I'll start cooking with it, okay? And then same thing with like when I started the podcast, like I would listen back to my like first episodes and I was like, these are trash. Like, these questions suck, whatever. I still routinely, I'll go through as I'm editing and I'm like, oh, you should have asked this here. You should have pivoted there. But that's my internal competitive nature of like, I want to be the best, right? If somebody I'm having on has been on other podcasts, I'll listen to every minute of every episode that you've done with somebody else and I'll make sure I ask questions that are better than the questions they asked, because that's my competitive nature, right?
Love it.
But I also know that there are things that like, somebody could always go, okay, well, hey, like your podcast only got this many views, right? And so you have that thing where there's something that they could dunk on you for, right? Mm-hmm. And so my thing would be this: when you have this competitive nature, and I think that's what makes you, the person that you are, right? But also if you dunk on somebody else, they're going to look for their shots to dunk on you, right? And so my question would be, in a space that's as small as the space that we're in,
yeah.
How do you manage that? Because obviously, like when you dunk on a project, even if it's legitimate, even if it's constructive criticism, whatever you want to call it, right? If you dunk on a project publicly and then you are tweeting something about your projects or anything like that, that person's going to want to be like, no, fuck you. Let me dunk on you back because of your previous dunking, right? Yeah. And then you got a dunk off and you got, we got.
I love it.
So how do you manage that? Because it's always been something where, like, when I've had founders on my podcast, I look at all of them as like, I want to do what I can to help them, right? And there's been times I've seen one of them like say something publicly, where I'm like, whoa, don't do that, don't do that. Yeah. Like, you're gonna cause a lot of shit for your holders. Like, don't do that. And I'll call them, and I'll call them, and I'm like, hey, here's why I would take that down, but do what you want to do. But as a friend, I'm reaching out. I don't think that's the best look. I'd take it down, right?
Yeah.
So how do you manage that? Because there's the part of you that is, that the comedy side, there's the constructive criticism side, but then there's also the project founder side. And like, when you say something or do something, it is also has an effect on your community. So how do you manage all of that?
Yeah. So vulnerability, right? I am okay with being vulnerable. I just am. Take your shots at me. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Perfect. Then I know what I can do better. My mentality as I've matured, I'm 32. I'm not like some brilliant human. I still have a ton I need to learn and improve on. But it's always been to be better. Now, if I'm sitting in a room full of project owners and it's all projects that I've dissed or get, fudded, I would love to have that opportunity. Like, bro, why didn't you do this? And then be able to hear it back. Like, oh, that's smart. Okay, well then do this and like work it out together. So that's how my brain works. When I see, specific projects doing stuff, I'm like, what are they doing? I'm going to talk about that. What an idiot, dude. Do you guys see this project? He sucks for this. They suck for this. Like, it hurts people's feelings, but at the same time, it's like, let's call it out. Let's call it out, because the more we call out all these mistakes, the less we're going to make them in the future. And that's how I view myself. So like, yeah, you can say I'm trying to balance comedy. I'm trying to balance a project. I'm trying to balance running a Twitter page and being politically correct in order to be a founder. Like, no, I'm not. I'm just going to be me. And the end goal will be very clear. And that's to run a successful project and to provide value to holders. And anything along the way, when there's mistakes, you have to make mistakes in order to grow. You have to be vulnerable in order to grow. And a lot of Twitter isn't willing to be vulnerable. A lot of people, I don't want to say Twitter, people are scared to be vulnerable because then you're going to call out their weaknesses. Nobody likes to be weak. Nobody likes to say, I'm going to do it and then fail. Nobody likes that. Well, those people don't grow. I can't tell you how many times I've said I'm going to do something and I've tried and I've failed. But I can also tell you how many times I've said I'm going to do something and then I exceed it or I complete it. I do it. And there was a pivotal point in my life, Marc, where I can specifically remember when that clicked in my head, where it's like, I do not care what these people think of me. I am going to do it whether I fail or not. I'm going to put myself out there. I was 25, so only 7 years ago, but this was like a pivotal point in my life where I already had children. I was already married and I was knocking doors for a living, dude. It was embarrassing to tell people, hey, what do you do for a living? Like, I knock doors. I sell pest control door to door. Like, that's not like some prestigious thing. I grew up kind of poor, dude. So I was going to do whatever it took to provide for my family. And I just happened to find this niche thing where it's not really niche. I could go door to door and sell. And I saw I was doing great. I was providing for us well. But I knew I could do better. And there was a lot of people around me doing better that were setting the bar for me. And near the end, you work over the summer. So you work like 4 or 5 months and then you take the rest of the year off. Unless you didn't make enough, then you go get another job. I was 25 and we got to this tournament where it's like March Madness for door-to-door sales. And so I was like, well, how stupid is that? Well, for those who haven't done door-to-door sales or who haven't even done sales, door-to-door is a different beast than anybody could probably even fathom. You've done phone sales. I don't care. Go door-to-door. That's nothing. Phone sales, you get hung up on. You don't see the person face-to-face. So I'm knocking doors, dude. It just sucks. I have people trying to fight me. They hate me, but you can also be deceitful, right? You can trick people into the contracts they're signing up for. Or you can just be honest and straightforward. And if you win together because the customer knows what they're getting, you win. You're both getting something. If you lie, the customer's going to be pissed at you. You're going to lose money. It's a lose. So naturally, from the path I started is just be honest. Just say it how it is. Just be blunt. I remember being trained when I started. I was 17 when I started door-to-door sales. Graduated high school early, just boom. Next day, flew out, started knocking doors. And I remember being trained and being taught. I was selling 5-year contracts for alarms door-to-door. You can say, if they ask you, is it a contract? Say no. And I was 17, so I just naturally, I didn't really understand. I was like, okay, no, it's not a contract. It's just an agreement that you keep it. And I was trained to say this. I'll always remember this. Don't say it's a 5-year contract. Don't ever say that. If they ask you, hey, is this a contract? Say no. It's a guaranteed rate, never to change for 60 months. And I didn't understand. Like, I just thought it was like, oh, that's what you say. I didn't understand the sales tactics or the lies. It's very immature of me. And I remember being on the doors and it clicking like, bro, these have like a $2,500 cancel fee. And as soon as I found that out, I was like, this is a contract? I'm lying to people, man. And so I just started being honest. And I'm kind of telling a little backstory. Sorry, Marc. This might be a little boring.
No, I love this.
Well, thanks. So I'm just gonna.
I'm only in year 4 of my contract. You sold me.
You're stuck. So I remember it clicked, and I was like, dude, I don't need to be a weasel like this. Just tell people the truth. And so from the beginning, once it clicked in my head, I was just like, I'm just gonna be straight up with people. And I connected with people so well on the doors because I was just straight up. Is it a contract? Yeah, for 5 years. And if you cancel, there's a penalty. But the benefit of having a contract is it's benefiting you as well, where your rate won't increase for those entire 5 years. So the contract is going both ways. We promise to provide this service for 5 years without increasing your rate. You just promise to pay us for those 5 years. Does that sound fair? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Because it's honest. It's true. And that will always win. There's power in truth. 1,000%. So, okay, going all the way back to it. That was the core me. And I ended up being super successful selling. I was 17, 18, and I was out selling all these young 20, mid 20, early 30-year-old dudes. And I was out working them. But when it clicked, was, I remember 25. So back to this tournament. I was never the number one guy. I was always just good, but I knew like in my core, like I could outwork anybody. And I remember what ignited it in me. There's a guy named Barrett. Barrett, if you're listening, you can go to hell. He called me and he wanted to knock one of my areas for pest control. It was like a juice spot. You knew if you went and knocked there, you were going to make money. And I was like, no, you can't. Like, I'm saving that for other guys. I was managing area and I was like, it's for them. And he went and did it anyways. And I was like, oh,
Barrett, you son of a bitch.
Exactly, dude. And so we got lined up in this tournament and I won week 1. I won week 2 and I wasn't really trying. I was like, I probably won't win. I didn't have that mentality. And then week 3 is me against Barrett. And I was like, oh, Barrett. And I went back and you could track everybody's numbers and he was good, dude. Good for pest control is if you're selling 1 or 2 a day, you know, you're making like $250 a sell. So if you're selling 2 a day, you're making $500 a day. But this MFer was selling like 4, 5, 6 a day. I was like, dang, he's good, man. And I remember just thinking, laying in my bed, how am I going to beat this guy? And I remember thinking, he's just better than me. He's selling more than me. Every single day, he's selling more than me. And it clicked. I just need to outwork him. That's it. I'm going to go out. I can't control how many he sells, but what I can control is how much work I do. And I knew, I just laying in bed, it was like a Sunday night before going to Monday. I remember my wife laying next to me with my eyes closed, and I was envisioning just getting out as soon as people wake up, like 9 in the morning, just knocking doors. It's an inconvenience to people for sure. But I knew if I did that every single day, and then I stopped at like 9 at night when it was dark at night, he wouldn't do that. Nobody's willing to do that because that sucks. Nobody wants to go knock doors. But at the same time, there's benefits to it. I'm going to talk to more people, which will lead to making more money, which will lead to me beating him in the competition, which will provide for my family more, which will help me win these incentives that we're working towards. And I remember just like then it got instilled into me that night, like I will outwork anybody. You might be better than me. You might be smarter than me. You might be more intelligent than me. You might have gone to college for 8 years. You might have grown up rich. You might have grown up wealthy. You might be like have triple my IQ, but I'm going to outwork you. And I went out and day 1, I sold 15 and he sold 9. I remember seeing those numbers that night and just being like, I dunked on that. I dunked on him, dude. The very next day, I sold like 21, my best day ever. And he sold 8, which 9 and 8, dude, is freaking phenomenal. Like he was doing awesome, but I was better. I outworked him and I just crushed him. And I remember day 3 on Wednesday, he sold 1 and I sold 11. He quit. He gave up. He knew he couldn't beat me. And I still to this day don't think I was more talented than Barrett. I just worked harder than him. And from then that I ended up winning that year. I got matched up against my best friend at the very end. And same thing. It was Monday morning when it was for the championship. I'll always remember his wife. I was already fired up. I was like, I'm going to win. I had all the motivation, dude. I was just crushing it. I was selling like 80 accounts a week, which is phenomenal money.
Yeah.
Bro, that didn't matter to me. I didn't care. I did not care. What mattered to me was that my number was higher than the person next to me. And I was driving out and I left my house at about 10 on a Monday morning. And I ran into his wife on the way out to work. And she said, hey, Aaron's already out to work. He's going to beat you. And I was like, oh, what? Did you really just say that to me? Like there was no, like it ignited me. Like I remember that feeling like it's over. Why did you say that to me? Like I wanted to beat my friend, but like I'm the competitive where it's like you just like poked me, man. Like I was ready, dude. Like I'm even feeling it right now. Like that like adrenaline. And I know I was just going to knock doors and talk to people, but I knew, and I was tired, man. I was working like 14-hour days, 16-hour days for like 5 weeks straight leading into it. So at my weakest, when I was ready to just be like, well, whatever happens, if he wins, great, it's my friend. And then 3 straight days, I beat him as well. And dude, the grand prize was $2,000. I was earning way more than that a day. Way more than that. There was prizes each bracket, but that didn't matter. And from then on, that competitive in me when it comes to work is like, you need that. If you're a provider, if you're just wanting to succeed, you have to stomp on people. And that's what King Fudd has done. And I burned, it wasn't fun for people to lose to me. And I knew it made a lot of people not like me in real life. Now, this wasn't Twitter. This was a stupid sales competition, but I was outworking them. I was outperforming them, and I talked my talk, man. I would message them, how many do you sell today? 7? That's trash, dog. I sold 14. I would talk my talk because it was fun. Like, I wanted them to continue to push me. Now, I owe them a lot because without them, I wouldn't have been pushed to my maximum potential. No, I would never say that to them because I'm out there trying to beat them. But I knew when they would lose to me, I'd rub them the wrong way. And I was trying to be like, bro, it's just like we were out there working. We had the same goal, but it was hard for people to differentiate. And that's who King Fudd is on Twitter. I am out there. I know I've burned people. I know I've stepped on them as I've tried to garnish attention and get to the point where I'm working on a project. But I'm okay with being that vulnerable because I want people to talk their talk with me because that's what motivates me. They're the ones helping me. They're the ones helping the space improve. So as much as Microsoft and Apple or Coke and Pepsi hate each other, without each other, they're not improving. So
that's facts. Drop the mic there. And that Aaron grew up to be Aaron D. Gods.
No, dude, he's better than that, Aaron.
Okay, so no, I mean it's cool hearing kind of the stories that like shape your mentality and shape the reason why you are the way you are. That's cool. I love hearing that kind of stuff. So okay, so then from there, my question for you becomes, okay, so when you have this mindset of like, I'm going to outwork people and everything like that, I feel like the one downside we have to this space is the space is small, right? Like we don't have, it's not like we're sitting on 100,000 people are active in crypto Twitter every day, right? Like realistically, we probably got 5,000 of us chilling, right? And so the issue that I feel like we have is that in order for, like anytime I see somebody say, we're going to be the number one project on Solana, number one project on Ethereum, we're going to be the number one project in NFTs, no matter what project they're talking about. I'm like, when you say that, you're saying that like whoever's currently number one is going to go down, right? Mm-hmm. And inherently, if someone says, I want to be the number one project on Solana, and, let's talk about before DGods was over on Ethereum, when somebody would say that, I'd be like, well, dude, my bags are in DGods. So when you say you want to be the number one project on Solana, I'm like, I'm not really a fan of that because that means that like that, unless I got a bigger bag of what you got, like that doesn't really help me.
Stomping your fire out, man.
So I'm not a huge fan of that idea. Mm-hmm. And that's why I always say like, I don't really care like who's number one. I just care that we're all eating, right? Like if DGods are $1 million for a DGod, then I don't give a shit if there's 10 other projects that are $1 million for one of them, right? Because like at the end of the day, if they're eating and we're all eating, well then shit, we just eat at nicer restaurants together, right? Yeah. And that's kind of the attitude that I've always had with it. But so my thing is like when you have this kind of like, like I'm gonna crush others mentality. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think competitive nature can be fun and it can be a good thing and it pushes the space forward. And I do think the space is in a way better position now than it was a year ago. Like we had a lot more bullshit a year ago. We had rugs constantly. We had Balloon Boy, Red Balloon Guy
crushing us.
Yeah, rugging us every other week. Okay?
Yeah.
So we've done a little bit better. We've grown in a lot of ways. We have better mints now. We have more transparency now. You hear from founders more now. We have and there's so much more.
A lot more Sol and ETH people like combining.
It's a lot more kumbaya.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
It's a lot better of a space. But inherently when you say like I want to have the best project, you still have to convert the people who are bag holding the current top projects in order to get them to come into your project, right? Or we have to add more people into the space, which is a difficult thing to do. So my thing becomes, how do you kind of like manage all of that, right?
Yeah, so there has to be realistic goals in your head. You can't be a moron. Like, I'm not saying day one, what I'm creating, what I'm building is number one. It can't be. There has to be progression to things. And you know, as much Fudd and I talked about DeGods, I didn't get to watch the Bored Ape Yacht Club do that. I was late. It sounds like they've done it phenomenally. But I did get to watch the DeGods do it, where it's progression. You know, if you go back and look at the chart, if you zoom out really, really far, it looks like they're just like this. What I bet a lot of people don't acknowledge is all the massive dips and what the team had to fix and then go up, fix and then go up, fix and go up. You zoom in, you start seeing the chart really has a lot of heavy dips. The reason I'm bringing that up, that's progression. That's how every single successful company has progressed. Nobody has ever had a straight shot up. So I would be an absolute fool to just say, hey, you're going to want to mint this, you're going to want to invest into this and what we're building, and it's just straight up from there. No, I'm very well aware we're going to probably make some mistakes. We're going to, you know, step on some toes. We're going to have people get really frustrated with the way we do things. But I am even more confident, as confident as I am that I'm going to make mistakes, because I will, and the team will. We're going to bounce back better. That's what you're supposed to do in life, and that's what businesses are supposed to do. And that's what good NFT projects do. So with that being said, I have the realistic mentality that we're not going to be number one, like right away. If not for a very, very, very long time. And what is number one? There's categories in NFTs, man. I would say DeGods are number one at what they're doing, what they're trying to build. They're not trying to build something like Yuga Labs. It's totally, completely different. I'd say obviously Yuga Labs' number as in floor price and also age. But everyone has their individual number ones. And as of right now, if I guess I had to put it into words, Mischievous Maxis will be the number one derug project. That's the category it is right now. And that's the end goal. And it will be. I love a lot of the people, and I'm thinking, I know if they're listening to this, I know they're thinking, oh, that bastard. Good. I want you to raise the bar, because in the end, your holders benefit. But I also know I'm going to outwork you. You may be thinking, no, you're not. Yeah, I will. So I love that. That's what's motivating me, and I hope it motivates them too. But like you said, in the end, you know, all of us are just trying to have the same goal, and that's to provide value to their holders. So I just like that. I love it.
100%. So, okay, so I want to talk about that. So why did you decide to derug Mischievous Maxis?
Man, I always wanted a project. Like I said, from the very get-go, is like, I'm going to do a project. It was just a matter of when. And at this time, it just, dude, just the planets aligned, dude. The stars were just like, this is it. I really wanted one. I'm in a position where I can run one, you know, financially, emotionally, and time-wise. And I had just tweeted out, and I do this every so often, where I'll say projects that I have a bag in or I don't, and just be like, these projects are doing well right now. If you can't afford one, go buy one. And I had done that, and Mischievous Maxis was one of them, because they were pumping, dude. And we can go into that, and Mischievous Maxis all we want. But they were pumping good. And so I was like stoked to give that alpha. Bro, go grab some. These, you can, you know, flip them and make some money. Or at very least, at the time, they were giving revenue share from their casinos. And so I tweeted it out, and like, I checked my phone like 2 hours later, and the first notification was, bro, you shilled a rug. And I was like, what? And I went and looked, and everyone was talking about Mischievous Maxis rugging. So I went to the Twitter page, and sure enough, whoever the guy is that rugged it was tweeting stuff like a balloon, the red balloon. And he was saying like, my grandma passed away or something. Like, I need to pay for this. I don't know, all sorts of stuff. And so I DM'd him. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, take a hiatus, hand the keys to somebody else. You don't just rug. You don't do that. And so I'm like reaming him in the DMs, and he's responded to me. So I'm just like shredding him. Like, what are you doing? Like, don't do this. Like, you're hurting a lot of people, man. And I was like, and plus, I just shielded you. You're making me look like an idiot, dude. I don't know who it was. I wish I could talk to that person. I mean, it could have been you. I don't know. It could have been anyone. I always wonder, like, is it someone I know? Like, they're probably watching me on Twitter right now, from an alt account. And anyways, I'm just like, bro, give me the keys. Give me the project. And at the time I was just thinking like, bro, I could take this over. I could fix this. And the floor price was already like 0.2 Solana. And at the time it was like 33 when I was telling people to buy it, 33 Sol, which is like at $40. So I think it was around, 2,400 a pop for a Mischievous Maxi plus, I don't know, 3,400. I can't remember. And everyone had already just given up and was trying to sell it. No one was buying. Everyone was listing to try and get out of the rug as soon as possible. And he ended up giving me the keys. He took all the money. I remember he left me with like 75 Sol. But he ended up giving me the keys. And I was like, dude, this is it. Like, I have been dying to run a project. To tell you the truth, my in real life homies didn't believe in me. They weren't willing to start a project with me. And I took it over. And then I reached out to my in real life homies. I was like, dude, I did it. And the response was really negative. Why? Dude, why'd you do that? You're just putting extra pressure on yourself that you don't need. Like, why are you doing that? But then the response on Twitter was so positive. Bro, that fired me up. That support is the best feeling. I hope everyone can feel that once in their life, of just being supported and believed in by people you don't really know. They just trust you 100%. That's something that people, if you're not a founder, you don't feel. And so, like, I know that that's what motivates most founders. It has to, because it's like, that's like straight adrenaline. Like, I could do it. I could run through a brick wall with your support, man. It's the best feeling. It really boosts your confidence for sure. And so I just thought it was super ironic that all these people who don't know me have all this confidence in me, and then all these people who know me in real life, who have seen my successes, and actually know that like I'm a really successful guy, don't believe in me, but all these people who know nothing about me believe in me. It's like, what is that? But after some time, and they started to see some traction with Mischievous Maxis, all of a sudden, all these people were like, okay, like, he can do it. And then I started building a team with people I trust, people I've seen super successful in real life. And I just started building with people that I like. They started believing in themselves. They started believing in the project, and we're able to go from there. So it was like a snowball effect. But it goes down to, why did I take Mischievous Maxis? I do not want to see more people lose money in this space. I just don't, dude. Anybody with a normal, decent, even the worst kind of morals, you don't want to see people lose. And these are people I've been talking to for 8-9 months straight on Spaces daily, and they just lost like $2,000 each. Some people hold like 10, so they're losing 20 grand. It's like, no, dude, we can change this. We're a strong enough group, even though crypto Twitter is tiny. We can fix this together. Let's let people exit at a reasonable rate to where they're actually making money off the project, and then let people enter that are willing to be in it. And then there's a fair exchange. Nobody's losing massively. And the people that were willing to bet on me, okay, now let's help them win. So people were able to exit, not lose, insane amount of money, at least exit around 4, 5, 6, 7 Sol. And then people were able to buy in at that. And so, it's not a rug anymore. And that was really cool that I was able to do that. Now it's time to provide value with the people who provided value to the people who exit. So that's it, man. It's really simple. Just want to make it better.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, we need more of that. I mean, there are so many people, like every time there's a big rug, it breaks my heart a little bit because I'm like, that's another person who has another reason to leave the space, right? And I'm like, and that just bums me out so much. Every time we see something like Celsius or FTX or a Project Rug or whatever, I'm like, somebody just lost real money. And we use that money to pay our bills. We use that money to provide for our families. We use that money to put food on our plate. And that person's ability to do that got hurt today, right? And that breaks my heart because it's real shit. And like we're, buying and selling these JPEGs on the internet, but it's real money attached there, and we're buying cryptocurrency, but there's real money attached there. And so as much as we joke about all of this, it's very, very real. And as much as we send memes of SBF and stuff like that, like if I ever met SBF, I'd want to headbutt him in the face for what he did to people, right? Like, it's like, man, you drastically hurt everything. And when you were acting like an asshole and you were acting irresponsible and you were doing so many things that could have been avoided. And it's like, and that's not even somebody who just hard rug. That was somebody who was just an idiot. Like, and that's the stuff. And it was like, it irritates me because it's like, man, there's so many real people with real lives and real families that are affected by this. And like, you have to know when you make decisions in this space, you affect real people. Right. And so, yeah, it's just something that, like, anytime I see anybody that derugs a project, I have a lot of respect for that. And then people who rug or people who mint a project and aren't thinking about the responsibilities that come with that. I'm like, dude, no one's forcing you to mint a project. Don't mint a project if you don't want to mint one.
They're doing it for money.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
And that's something that, like, when my podcast first started doing well, I had people say to me, like, dude, you could mint a project. It would mint out. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, what happens after that? Like, if I don't have an idea for where this thing is going to go, if I don't have a game plan of how this is going to become the next big thing, then why would I mint a project? Because then I'm going to have people going, hey, buddy, you minted out. Congratulations. But like, now I need this thing to go up, right? Yeah. And you got to have that plan. And I think there's a lot of people that just go, well, the cool thing is to just mint a project. And it's like, dude, it's really, minting out a project is not hard, okay? It's building a successful project that's really, really difficult, and dealing with those ups and downs that you talked about. That is not easy to do, right? Nope. And because when you do have all of that momentum, it's great. But then the moment you start dealing with a little bit of issue, it's hard to steer that ship right back up, right? And that's the thing that I feel like people don't often think about before they start a project or, before they take on some of this responsibility. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And that doesn't mean there are people with good intentions who are still going to fail, right? Like, this space is difficult. And I think that's the part that I guess why I'm not like a huge, like, publicly criticizing different projects, because I'm like, there are a lot of people who work their ass off who just don't have that idea that's going to change things, right? And I'm like, and it's difficult to say, like, hey, just come up with that idea that, like, people really love and they support, right? It's like, well, no shit, but that's difficult to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I guess, like, what have you learned as a founder or as an owner now of Mischievous Maxis? Like, what has been the biggest realization, that maybe something that you didn't realize until you took over the project, something that you've had to deal with that's just a difficult thing as a founder?
Devs are slow. You're there's a little bit more relying on other people than I would have liked. And that's because I'm not a dev. I'm not able to do certain things and build certain things that I would like to happen, and I'm relying on other people to do it. That's the same with art. I'm relying on artists to create something in my head and this vision that I have. But I can't do it myself. So that's really hard for me, because I would like to be in control of everything, so then it can be perfectly my baby, but it's a team effort. Projects are a team effort. You cannot have a successful project behind one person. It takes teams to be successful. So, whereas with these companies, that I was talking about, or with the sales history that I was talking about, those are one-man shows. Like, you can run a company, you have to hire people and then rely on them, but you get to delegate it and be a lot more in control. And with NFT project, it's the same. You're hiring and delegating, but they're the ones in the end that are creating, the specific things, like even just the staking website, or, the art, or no matter how much I try and delegate and explain what's wanted, it's really hard to create exactly the vision you have. Bro, I can't tell you how many artists I paid and then just like cut them off because I was like, no, you're not doing at all what I want. It is hard. I'd say that's it. The social aspects and people wanting like an immediate floor price flip, that's all expected. Like, we've all been part of the space long enough. We know, like, everyone's going to have their impatience. But then you also have the opposite end of people that are just so kind and patient and okay with you building and, the floor price kind of fluctuating until you provide something of value. So those are the best kind of holders any founder could ask for. So yeah, I would say those are all the surprises and things I've learned. And, I need to be more active in Discord is something I've learned. People want that access. But that's it. Yeah.
And I think people are going to be excited to hear this too. I think these sort of conversations are fun for people to kind of listen to and get to know you more. And I think people will be talking about the pesticide stories and stuff like that. And they'll be talking about damn Barrett and and Aaron, whose wife we thought he had a chance of beating you, but did not.
Nope.
So my next question for you is, so you have Mischievous Maxis, and then you have this new project Dot that you're doing, right? So how are those two things correlated? And can you tell me a little bit more about what is Dot?
Yeah, so Mischievous Maxis was a derug project with 75 Sol. In order to make a project succeed, you need funds in order to provide value back to holders. So I just communicated with him, like, look, I'm going to build things that ultimately drive value back to Mischievous Maxis. It's a very small collection of like 1,600 something. So with that said, we created Dot. That's on Solana for Solana. The goal is to better Solana. That's where I was born in NFTs. That's where the majority of people I connected with were invested into. And at the same time, I ended up getting into Ethereum. And I was like, man, more people need to be doing both. And then Bitcoin ordinals came out and a bunch of stuff. And it's like, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build on each one, and I'm going to provide value back to Mischievous Maxis holders. So starting with Dot. Dot will be a Solana-based project, and Mischievous Maxis holders, which are on Solana, will get one for free. And then we're going to mint the rest, and those mint funds will provide value to all Dot holders. Now, with that being said, Mischievous Maxis have a game plan of what we're going to do step by step in order to help the Mischievous Maxis, and so does Dot. So just like, Bored Apes and Mutant Apes, or D-Gods and Utes, or Tayo Robotics and Pilots, it's going to be Mischievous Maxis and Dot.
There we go. And so what would you view as like a year from now? And I know a year, a lot can happen, right? But like a year from now, what would you view as a success for Mischievous Maxis and for Dot?
Do you mean floor price?
No, just in general. Like, what would you say? Is there like a certain like benchmark where you're like, hey, this would be like where I could view it as a success? And that could be it can be from a numeric standpoint, or it can be just from a community standpoint. It can be from a, whatever standpoint.
Yeah. The only way I would consider it like a failure in a year is if the floor price is lower than mint price. Because that would mean holders then don't value it as much as they paid for it. Now, that's a whole nother subject. I love talking about floor price, and I'm I want to explain why I do things the way I do with Mischievous Maxis and that floor price, and we can go into that. But in a year, I would consider it a massive success if it's A, above mint price, and B, an active community. The floor price will take care of itself, like for the exact number. And I told you what my end goal is. And that's to be, I know at first, the end goal is to be the number one derug project ever. And then I want to absolutely stomp that name and it not be a derugged project. And I want it to be its own project, and then we can go from there. But like I said, there's levels and progression to everything, so that my vision is a really active community in a year still.
And what have you learned from like being in the space for as long as you have about like how to galvanize a community like that?
It's one by one. It's brick by brick. I thought I've got a Twitter following. I've got people that are super active and interactive with me on Twitter. They'll just translate right to a community for me. That's not the case, even a little bit. Growing a community is literally brick by brick, teaching people, reaching out to people individually, explaining what you're building, why it would be worth it for them to be a part of it, what would intrigue them about being part of this community, what they benefit from it, financially, emotionally, and socially. So I was hoping that would translate. It definitely did, but not as much as I wanted. And it was a good humble. It's like, okay, well, let's go back to the door-to-door of Twitter. The door-to-door sales, reaching out to person one by one, trying to grow. I mean, when I started one of my pest control companies that had 0 customers, and, we grew that above, 6,000 active customers. And that was just brick by brick, one customer by one customer by one customer. And that's what we're having to do with this. And I'm okay doing that. I'm okay not going from 0 to 10,000 holders. It takes time.
And what would you say if somebody's sitting here and they're like, hey, I'm debating buying a Mischievous Maxi, or I'm debating minting into DOT when that comes out? When do you think DOT realistically will be minting?
It's going to be soon, within weeks.
Okay.
Weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really soon.
Okay. And what should someone be excited about? Maybe not even from like a specific, like this is like a specific item of what we're doing with Mischievous Maxis. Why do I struggle with the word mischievous?
It's tough.
I just struggle with that
That's
word.
That's a big word.
It
There's
really
a lot of
is.
Vowels.
It is. There's several syllables in there. Like I really struggle with mischievous. I'm realizing that now the more I say it. Okay. Why should somebody be excited about the future of Mischievous Maxis?
Okay, so that's a loaded question because there's a lot of different aspects. There's going to be social game theory that we're doing with it. There's going to be a lot of rewards. So there's different reasons people get excited. And so when you're building something, you're trying to find all those different reasons and try and get, each individual excited about it. So the first things first is like, why would I mint it? So one thing we have to do to intrigue minters, well, there's a lot more to it, but one of the things, and that's like a huge thing, is one, it's only going to be a collection size of like 5,500. One of the 5,500 minted, you'll get $20,000.
Oh, casual.
So a massive win. The idea there, obviously everyone wants to win that. It's not going to be some huge, massive cash grab mint. The goal is to make it a really genuine rewards-based NFT where people are actually being rewarded for holding it. And that alone is just like a shot at 20 grand. Hopefully that changes a life for the better. I know 20 grand isn't like, that sets me up for life. Like I'm, now financially stable or free, but imagine someone in a third world country wins it. Imagine somebody that owns $17,000 in student loans wins it. I want to change a life for the better.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
That would be freaking rad. Now, I don't want people just gambling and being like, that's what this is. This is a 50-50 raffle mint. That's just one tiny thing of, to encourage people. Like getting people to mint is the hardest thing any project can do. and creating excitement and hype. And that's just one tiny thing. It's like, look, you have an opportunity. Let's change a life. Or bro, with 20 grand, you can almost buy a DGOD. And if that's like your main goal, that's just one tiny intrigue. Now with that said, I'm changing the mint game, doing things that nobody has ever done. I always see, and it's always made me mad when people are like, we're collabing with this project. We're trustworthy because we collabed with this project. What does that mean? You gave them mint? You gave them whitelist? That doesn't mean anything. A whitelist is just an opportunity to give them money. You're one of the 10,000 people who gets to give money to that project. That's not a collaboration. The other project's getting nothing from it. So what we're doing is, I'm not going to drop the names yet, and there's still 2 I'm in talks with. But I'm collaborating, an actual collaboration. As of right now, I have 4 locked in, top 15 Solana projects. I have 4 of the top 15 Solana projects that we're collaborating with. And what that means is everybody who owns one of those, if they mint DOT, half of their mint funds will go back to their OG project. Now, the reason I'm doing this isn't to convince people to mint. That is a bonus. There's many other reasons you should mint. But the reason I'm doing this is the hardest thing to do with an NFT project, or let's just say a business. If you don't have funds, you can't function. And a lot of these OG Solana projects that have a higher floor price have spent most of their funds. It costs money to pay people to even run a Discord, to mod. If you're doing things the right way, you're paying these people. A lot of these founders are really, really in debt with their projects. I'm not saying they're poor or they're negative money. I'm saying they're negative money paying for this project to function. And I don't think a lot of holders recognize that.
Oh yeah.
And so the goal here is, you want to make a project more powerful, give it money. You want to make an ecosystem better, give it money. So DOT, the reason we're saying it's on Sol for Sol, it is. I want to see Solana projects succeed. Like I said, the end goal isn't to just stomp on every other project and just, I got to push you down in order for me to rise up. That's not what I'm trying to do. How we're minting is I've collabed and I've talked to all these project owners. They know they are going to get half mint price. They're going to get half the mint funds. This is to benefit them. So then they have more firepower in their treasury. They can then provide more value to their holders. So I'm not just looking to raise money for DOT. I'm looking to raise money for Solana. I'm looking to help OG Solana projects or projects where I believe the founders are active. I've been super hand selective of who I'm choosing to collab with and work with because I want to see those projects succeed as well. A lot of them I don't own. A lot of them, they're not, I don't have bags in them. I just want the founder to have more firepower to provide to their community instead of them paying it out of their pocket. Instead, the community should help themselves. And this is an opportunity for the community to help themselves while investing into a new project. Make it a win-win, an actual true collaboration where both parties are benefiting instead of one party just getting a whitelist to give money to the other party. So I'm very, very excited to pump more money into Solana NFTs and help a lot more people ideally raise the floor price and the value of their NFTs and receive something back beyond a higher floor price.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really cool. Like I remember when we were on the phone call a few days ago and you told me about that. And I just thought that was really, really cool because I was like, I've never heard anybody do that. And giving back to OG projects, I think is always an awesome thing. And then incentivizing those community members to mint because they're not only getting a new project, but they're also helping the project that they're already passionate about. So I love that idea. For somebody like once they mint DOT, I know obviously I'm sure you have things planned that you're not necessarily going to just drop the alpha and tell us everything, but like if somebody mints DOT, what should they know, I guess, moving forward about the future of DOT?
Yeah, you got to hold an NFT to receive the rewards, right? There's flippers looking to make a quick buck. DOT is going to be something that, isn't just like an immediate, 100 floor price. That can't happen. We've seen it happen in the past, and I know everybody regrets it. I hate to throw them under the bus, but it's just a good example. I don't need to say the names. We've seen floor prices go from 0 to 60 to 100 to 200 to 270 without anything being delivered. And then what happens? Expectations are way too high, and then the value received is way too low. And then what happens to the floor prices is, and then what happens to the holders? They're pissed. You have a lot of people bag holding. That's because that's not organic. That's not done right. And so DOT will not be a pump and dump. It will be a pump that sometimes dumps, that we pump, that sometimes dumps, that pumps. So that's how you have to go into DOT, expecting it to be a long-term hold. Now, look, if you need money in real life and you need to sell an NFT to get that money, then do it. I think everybody in the space encourages people to pay their bills. That's why we're doing this, right? We all want to make money, but more importantly, I think once people are comfortable financially to hold something, then you get to enjoy the community. You don't have to be stressed about the money. You're like, hey, it's great. The value's going up. But more importantly, this community is awesome and more than worth the money I invested. So I definitely want DOT to be that. I want people to make really good connections. I want people to literally learn and grow and just enjoy NFTs. I want it to be fun. That's why the Maxis from the very get-go, our slogan was "We party." We party. And I want it to be that. Just have fun. Everything else will take care of itself. We'll do the work. We'll do the work behind the scenes. You guys just enjoy the ride.
There we go. There we go. That's a great mic drop. Like I love that, and I think that's at the end of the day, that's why we're in the space, is to have fun. And dude, I've enjoyed this conversation today. Like I've thoroughly enjoyed this. This is about having fun, and that's what we've done today. And like I think this has been an opportunity for people to get to know you more and get to know the projects and get to know your intentions and things like that. And I think when you know somebody's intentions, you can kind of. You're never going to get projects to just tell you everything that they have planned, but when you know their intentions, then you kind of know, what their thought process is like, right? And just knowing that you have such good natural intentions, and then just knowing that you just want the space to be fun is always something that I've enjoyed. And so, dude, I've thoroughly loved this podcast. I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have too. And I know we'll be. I'm looking forward to talking about the future of DOT and the future of Mischievous Maxis and everything like that as time goes on. Because I know if there's one thing I do know about you, it's that competitive nature from the door-to-door pesticide. Now it's door-to-door NFTs, and it's about brick by brick building this up. I'm excited for it, but for people who want to reach out to you, or if they want to check out Mischievous Maxis or DOT, can you drop socials? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just my name, King Fudd. It's like my Twitter is literally @King Fudd. I'm okay being doxxed, like people knowing my real name. I've mentioned it a lot in person. And then Mischievous Maxis, I've got their handle in my bio. They're on Magic Eden. DOT's Twitter is about to rage. It's about to rumble.
There we go.
So they'll find it. It's literally just DOT NFT.
There we go.
It's DAWT. It's an acronym. It stands for Degens Always Winning Together.
Oh, I like that.
And it's an acronym based off of the art is going to be, based off of DOT as well. So it worked out perfectly, because it does take a team. It does take all of us if we're going to win. So yeah, just look it up. Find King Fudd.
There we go.
That's it, man.
There we go, man. Well, hey, I've loved this, dude, and I've I've thoroughly enjoyed being able to get to know you on a personal level, and then just have this conversation. And I'm excited about the future of all of this, and yeah, man, just excited. I've really appreciated you coming out here. You've been one of the people that I've been like, dude, I want to just get to know him further and have some of these conversations, and just hearing how you got started with everything, and then hearing how the King Fudd name came to be, and then hearing the stories about pesticide and stuff like that. Those are the things that you just never know you're going to get those stories till you start having these conversations. So
it's fun talking.
So yeah, man, I've loved this, and I looking forward to more trips for you back out to LA.
We'll do it.
Yeah, we got to do this. So we'll have a DOT party. How about that?
I'm in, dude. Let's do it. DOT party. Let's get you that wife.
Hell yeah.
Let's wife you up.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, I've enjoyed this. Everybody else, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll chat with you guys soon.
All right.
See you guys.
Peace.